Welcome to the Wingman Show. Float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Drew Brown. We are sponsored by Magic Mind and my wingman, my man, the number one guy I know, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother?
Hello, Mr. Drew. How are you doing today?
Great, great, great.
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fine. I'm ready to do a show for you.
Good. I'm feeling like Tony the Tiger. Great. You got a super bad wingman for us it's like a major wingman. Wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, it's a major wingman, and a little tease is sometimes they're everyday heroes who are all around us and are never noticed, and they may have been around for decades and decades.
Well, how about that? How about that? You just never know. Well, all of you frequent flyers who listen to us all the time, thank you so much. Any of you new listeners, welcome, welcome, welcome. If you can, write us a little review on Apple Podcasts. We'd really like it. We have a newsletter out on wingmenshow.com. That's wingmenshow.com. Now, behind me is a super badass F-35 and afterburner. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's it. That's a nice looking picture. I really like that. There's a lot of physics going on there.
Vapors. They say vapors. The vapors. Well, you know what? This F-35, the reason I put this out there was that afterburner thing. You know, when I was learning how to fly and I wanted to fly a Navy jet, it was a Tomcat because they had those two afterburners. And I used to love to watch them just fire up. So when we were on the ship, I used to talk to the Tomcat pilots, and they said, let me tell you something about these afterburners. If you put them on, you only have 4 minutes, and then you're out of gas. And you and I both know that flying around the ship, especially at night, the one thing that you must have is gas. If you don't have anything else in the whole world, you want some gas.
Yes.
So that afterburn is good, but it's just like pouring raw fuel on a fire. And the gas just dissipates. But those bad boys at night look good coming off the catapult.
Yeah, they do. They do. And the airplane behind me is an older one, an F-105 Thunder Chief. It was the mainstay of the U.S. Air Force, and I don't think they exported too many of them. There may have been some other countries that had them. But it was mostly during the Vietnam period. They came in like from the late 50s, and they used them until the 80s. They made about 800 of them. It was supersonic. They could go Mach 2, 2 times the speed of sound at high altitude. They had to I won't say get rid of them. They took them out of the theater. They lost a lot in Vietnam. They lost almost half of them that were produced. They had a high attrition rate.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. They lost. I think they made like 850. In Vietnam, they lost like 380 and another 60 and other things, just regular stuff. So they took them out and they kind of really replaced them with F-4s, but it was like a medium attack. It was a fighter and a bomber, and could go pretty fast. And I think they had a couple shoot downs, but didn't do very well.
It's an Air Force plane.
Air Force plane. Yeah, I saw a model of one in Robbins Air Force Base a few months ago. They had a full scale model of one, and it's pretty impressive. The Phantom is a little bit bigger, more capable, but just that's the way it goes. Yeah, the afterburner. A lot of people don't know the afterburner. They call it after because normal jet engine has a combustion chamber after. There's a second combustion chamber aft of the normal combustion chamber, and that one they shoot in a little more fuel, mix it with air that's coming off the engine, ignite it, and that you get the thrust of that explosion plus what's coming from the regular engine. That's why you get so much poop out of it. But it's shooting raw fuel in there.
Yeah, it's just dumping gas.
It's dumping gas. So you got
dumping gas.
You may need that gas at the point. So
in the Air Force, they're flying over land. We're flying over water. And when you fly over land, you could put your landing gear down and land somewhere. In the water, it's a little bit different. Those afterburners are badass, though. They really look good. I was telling you, we're sponsored by Magic Mind. And their little saying, which I like, is do more, stress less. And anybody who's interested in getting, man, this is some good stuff. We're going to get our next shipment here this week, I hope. And it really does make me do more. You get more productivity out of it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for mine to come too. I'm looking for my package. I looked in the mail yesterday. I didn't see it. But I'm looking forward to it. It's unusual, but I'm looking forward to to a nutritional supplement.
Me too. They have ashwagandha in there, and that's supposed to really reduce your stress. And anybody who wants it, you go to magicmind.co and you put in the code Wingman. If you put in the code Wingman, you'll get up to 40% off. All right, that's enough of that. But that Magic Mind got me fired up this morning, I'll tell you that. Well, something very good happened this week. And I don't want to date ourselves, but God bless it, Brittany Griner came home after 10 months of being locked up in a Russian prison for cannabis oil, which I want to tell you, on Russian TV, I thought I saw, it said drug possession. Well, this was cannabis oil she was put in jail for 10 months. The one thing I do like is, during this entire exchange, they want to let the other guy out too. And she's not just looking at herself. She's now, her and her wife are looking at all the other people who are held and detained around the world that shouldn't, unlawfully, and shouldn't be there. What do you think about Brittany? BG came home.
Yeah, so I guess she came back to San Antonio, Houston. I think she's from Texas. But it was very interesting. It was almost like the thing you'd see in the movies, a swap for the arms trafficker. And they did it. Well, I think they did it in Abu Dhabi or something. Or was it?
Well, let me just say this one. Did you see how they were blurring out the pictures of the people with them?
Yes.
They didn't do a very good job. So if I was after those people, I'd get them. I just had to put that in there.
Yeah, you magnify the images. Yeah, usually they do those exchanges in Europe because they do this periodically. But because of the war with Russia and the war, the Russians didn't want to send an airplane anywhere in Europe because they thought it'd be confiscated, like everything else, like your yachts. So they used the Middle East as a third country, and they did the exchange there. That's very, very unusual.
Well, I'm sure glad she's home.
Yeah, she's back, and the other guy's there. They charged him with spying, but the government says there is no spies. Good luck. I pray for him to come home. And there are people around the world who are unlawfully detained. And you and I were talking about that. Dr. Paul, could you imagine being locked up for something you didn't do? A percentage of people are unlawfully detained, and that has to be hell. Yeah, I mean, a prison is not, it's not someplace you want to be. I've been to a couple visiting people that I've known, let's just say, and there's nothing good about them. No, especially if you haven't done anything. No, oh, that's horrible. The one thing that we take for granted that maybe we shouldn't is freedom. And I tell you something, I bet you when you get released from a prison or from anywhere where you were confined, the greatest thing you have now is your freedom. I do know that. Yeah, I don't take it for granted. As an aside, on the way to a medical appointment yesterday, we were driving, and halfway there, we saw two flashing lights with police cars, and three police officers gathered around 4 young men sitting on the curb with their hands behind their back, obviously handcuffed. What, were you watching a movie? No, I was driving to Fayetteville. No, I know. Hey, I told you about gambling. I don't like to gamble, and I told you why I don't like to gamble, because I would have bet my home that Flavor Flav wouldn't marry Rocky's Bridget Nielsen. I just would have bet everything on that. So I don't gamble anymore. Right. But the one time you should gamble maybe is on yourself, because you have the ability to change that outcome. And somebody who gambled on themselves was Aaron Judge. Last year, Yankees offered him $150 million less than he just received, because I think he got $360 million for 9 years. And that's because he broke the home run record and he bet on himself. He says, I don't want to take that contract. I'll show you what I can do. And I'll be god dang if he didn't do it. And he also became Time Magazine Man of the Year. Is he? I didn't know. Yes. That. Well, that's our New York Yankees. Yeah. He broke Roger Maris's record, which I remember that was set when I was in the second grade, I think. Yes. Yeah. That's kind of unusual, I wonder how many athletes have done something like that. Who bet on themselves? Yeah. So I won't take the contract, but we'll see how it goes.
Some have, but some, you bet on yourself in a sport like that, you can get hurt and your bet is lost. You lost your bet.
Right.
So that's a tricky subject right there, but I'm so happy for him. Talking about a long time ago, how old do you think texting is?
Texting, I started texting about, what was this, 2002? 10 years ago. So let's say, call it 12.
30. Texting is 30 years old. And I want to talk about this for a second. Texting is 30 years old, Doc. And last year, over 2 trillion texts were sent. Now, something you and I grew up with was communicating face to face, or at least on a telephone where you spoke to somebody, where you could hear their voice inflections, where you could tell a lot more about a conversation rather than texting. Mm-hmm. Now it seems like young people, especially, the way they communicate is by text. And what I don't understand is, how do you know that you saw the person you sent the text to? How do you know they read it? How do you know they're going to respond? Don't you need to get an answer back? Or can I just say, oops, I didn't even see the text?
Yeah.
Sometimes
that's true. And I wonder, sometimes someone will send me a text and I'll respond right away. And I'm expecting another response right away.
Right.
It's like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And they're saying like, hey, what did we do before we had all this? Oh yeah. Okay. I remember. Calm down a little bit. Yeah. It's a great tool. It's a great tool. Well, like everything else, you got to use it reasonably. If you got certain serious things to say, maybe texting isn't the way to go. Maybe face to face or on the phone with a voice. But for short little cryptic messages, it's great. You were doing texting when you were flying in the airplanes. You're getting text to your ACAR systems. Those are texts. And they're good. You have lots of good information.
Wait a minute. ACARs. Don't just throw that out there, Dr. Paul. Tell the people out there, not all Navy jet pilots like us. Okay. Tell them what ACARs mean.
Basically, it's basically text messages between a controlling authority and you.
But in text now they use emojis. They have acronyms. Mm-hmm. People need to know that when you communicate, you have to also know how to speak correct English. You have to also know how to say it the right way, not just the wrong way. Like I knew a lot of people where I grew up, we all spoke street, but a lot of people only spoke street and didn't speak correct English. And that hurts you later on in life.
Yeah, the reality is you need to be multilingual. Whether you're in this country and speak English, you need to know local language, local neighborhood, and basically how to get employment.
No doubt about it. And one thing my mother and father both made me do. When I speak to somebody, I have to look at them. And if you look at young people today, they naturally or normally look down when they're talking. They're not looking at you. They're not looking you face to face. And I was not allowed to talk to anybody unless I was looking them in the eyes.
Well, they're looking at using cell phone usage actually cause you typically to bow your heads down. And people actually have developed a change in their body just from this position. Their spine is changing. Because if you look at any waiting room or a train in this country or any other I've been to in the last 15 years, people are looking down. And if you go to Asia, everybody's looking down the whole time.
Yeah. Wow. I never even noticed that. Yeah, well, let me ask you this. Do you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Yeah. Do you think does he know how to cook? What if he can cook? I bet I could beat him in a couple things.
I bet you. That's funny. I wonder if The Rock can cook.
Does he cook? Yeah, I mean, he can hire a cook. Maybe he's a good cook. He's a chef.
I don't know if he can cook, but the young Rock used to steal.
I heard that.
He used to steal Snickers. He stole Snickers every day for a year when he was 14 in Hawaii. Wow. How about that? And it's been building on his conscience ever since. The Rock went back to that store that he stole the Snickers from every single day. He bought all the Snickers in the store, and, everybody could have free Snickers. But everybody else in the store that was with him that day, he paid for all their groceries.
That's good. That's very good. That's a good way to make up.
When you do wrong, Dr. Paul, I believe that God gives you this. And it's not a religious thing, it's a spiritual thing. I do believe God gives you the ability to know between right and wrong. And when you do wrong, it does sit with you. It sits with you and it sits with you. And if you notice, a lot of people actually go into a police station with their hands like, hey, cuff me. I did something 10 years ago and I can't sleep anymore knowing that I did it. A lot of people do that,
Yeah. Yeah. Every once in a while, you'll hear a story of someone that stole something and out of guilty conscience has returned it. Doesn't happen that often.
Well, I do believe that it's inside you and you have to stuff it away. You know the difference between right and wrong. Let me ask you this one. How many libraries do you think there are in America?
Oh.
Well, let me ask you one better. Do you think there are more libraries or more McDonald's and Starbucks? McDonald's and Starbucks put together. Which one do you think has more?
There'd be more McDonald's just by itself.
The answer, Dr. Paul, is there was 115,000 libraries in America, and there are more than there are McDonald's and Starbucks. And the reason I bring this up is that I've always said that the library is the one place that has the key to your future. No matter where you live, no matter where you come from, if you get yourself to a library and start learning and start hanging out there and start researching what you're a LeBron James in, because that's what I think. Everybody's a LeBron James, just not in basketball. Some in flying, some in art, some in English, but everybody has a skill. Well, the library is a place where you can find out where that skill is. Libraries. It's the key to the future, I believe.
Yeah, they're underutilized. There's one near me. I would go there when my grandson was here. When we would go, you might see like 2 or 3 other people in there. You don't have the same offering as you do online, but a lot of them have computers. They have a lot of stuff you can do online for free. And it's quiet. They're still quiet. It's good to be in a place that's quiet. You can have resources. A lot of people start very successful businesses doing all the research in a library. Didn't have money to go buy a lot of stuff. They did all their stuff there. They did it all there. It's an underutilized resource. You don't even hear them really being advertised at all. You're bringing up now. I think we're doing a public service. There's a place.
Libraries, yes.
Yeah, you can go quiet. You can study. It's free as long as you don't cause any problem, and you stay quiet. You can do your thing there.
All right. Well, then, since you said PSA, let's do a Wingman PSA. This is from the 11 Facts in Life. Education is necessary, but knowledge is mandatory. Once again, education is necessary, but knowledge is mandatory. Get an education. What do you think about that, Doc? Because that's our premise here. Get an education, make some money, and live happily.
Yep. Remember, some guy said hard work plus education minus drugs equals the American dream, or at least equals a good dream anywhere.
Yeah, I remember somebody saying that.
Yeah, some guy said that.
Guess what? When we're talking about education, man, do I have some cool stuff for you. And this is about women. Let's just put this little section on education and women. There is a young lady, a NASA engineer, a woman who now wants to design women's spacesuits. She's a NASA engineer. Her name is Sabrina Thompson, and she's an artist. And what she did was she took her education and her passion and she combined them. In other words, she did very well in school to be an aeronautical engineer, to work for NASA. So that means she has an income. And now she has a passion, which was art. And what she does is she has enough time, enough money, and enough experience to start melding them together. And that's what Sabrina's doing. Tell me a little bit more about Sabrina Thompson, because I'm very impressed with this woman.
Yeah, as far as I know, no relation that I know so far.
Not your cousin?
Not that I know, but you never know. Every once in a while, I found I am related to a couple of people that you might have seen on TV. But the thing is that she was a mechanical engineer. She just got into that was going to college, didn't know what she was going to do. And an art teacher, since she liked art, suggested she do that. And perhaps she did it and got good at it and got her master's and started working for NASA. I think she works on orbital trajectories on where they're going to put certain satellites in space so they don't smack into each other. You know, your interstate highway system in outer space, since there's so much stuff up there. So that's kind of an important thing. Yeah, she's got her own company. She's making these spacesuits. And I guess SpaceX and the other companies that are in space are looking at some of the designs, because her thing was that most of the spacesuits are not designed for women. They're designed for men, and they need to fit women's bodies differently, which is interesting. I'd never heard of it because everybody looks about the same.
What I really like about her is she's pushing STEM, and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. It is our keys away from poverty. It is the keys to success.
That's true.
Don't you agree with that, Doc?
I do. And she's using basically her creativity to use, because it's got to be a lot of science to go into anything that's going to go into outer space. It's got to meet a lot of parameters for the body, for the environment, for a lot of things. You got to know where you are. And she's basically going to do that and put you in something that also looks good at the same time.
Now, how about this young girl? She just won a science project. She won the middle school science project of the year. And she has actually come up with headphones that actually stop ear infections. And I didn't know this, but middle ear infections kill 21,000 people a year, and over 700,000 people get them. And she came up with these headphones with blue lights in them that can actually help middle ear infections. And she won the science award. What about that one? Her name is Leanne Fan, and she's a 14-year-old young scientist from San Diego who came up with a way to stop middle ear infections. Wonderful, huh, Doc?
Yeah, I saw a picture of her, and it looked like she was surprised. I guess they announced it when they had the finalists. And when her name came up, she's just like, kind of shocked that she got it. One thing she said she's most proud of, in addition to curing the middle ear infections, she said that also the headphones play great music. So I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, she said, yeah, they do that too. Apparently very good. I don't know if see if they're as good as Bose and other things. Or maybe she's smart. She might link up with Bose or some other company.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, let's play a little game there, Doc. Let me ask you this. The Windy City, why is the Windy City, and what is it? And why was it named that?
I was
from your guessing.
Chicago, and because the wind whipped through there through the I guess the Venturi effect caused by all the skyscrapers. That's what
and I were talking about that in Manhattan. Yeah. Remember when we were young? Oh, yeah. I'd have to walk backwards. It'd be so cold and so windy in Manhattan that you'd have to walk backwards in order to walk against the wind.
I've done that a number of times. Yeah, a number of kids always do that. Yeah, kids always. That was fun, actually.
Well, we just learned out the Windy City has nothing to do with wind. It's because a long time ago in Chicago, this person, I guess a journalist, thought that most of the people in Chicago were full of hot air. And that's how it was named the Windy City.
Really? That's interesting.
Isn't it? I got another one for you.
I would think that would be New York, but you said, okay, hot air. All right.
Well, it's probably a person in New York who went to Chicago who called them hot air.
Probably.
How about this one? How old do you think the oldest person in America is?
106.
Very close. 9 years away. 115. That's a human being. That's our species, the race called Homo sapiens. Now, what is the oldest living mammal in the world?
Let's see. I don't know how long whales live. I bet there's a shark 100 years old.
It's a tortoise. His name is Jonathan. He lives in South Atlantic Island, St. Helena, in the Seychelles. And Jonathan just celebrated 190 years. A big tortoise. And if you watch us On YouTube, you will see pictures of all these things we're talking about, especially them badass jets. But you're going to see a picture of Jonathan, 190-year-old tortoise. I bet you his diet is good, don't you think?
Probably pretty good. Does he have all his faculties? If there are whatever faculties a tortoise would have.
Well, at 190, you don't need many. You just need to be happy.
Yeah, he probably got caretakers. Yeah. If you got a name, you probably got caretakers.
Well, we're sponsored by Magic Mind, and I just want to talk about it a little bit. Magic Mind, and if you want it, it's magicmind.co. Magicmind.co, and for 40% off, just use the code Wingman. But this Magic Mind stuff, I'll tell you, I do put off a lot of things, and I have, and it's called procrastination. Ever since I've been taking Magic Mind, my procrastination has actually been sliding away. I'm actually doing things that I didn't think I was going to do for a long time, and it's got to be the Magic Mind. Also, on stress, I'm not worried as much as I used to be, and I wasn't worried very much at all. But it seems like my stress level has gone way down. And, the less stress, the longer you live.
Yes.
What do you think about that Magic Mind, our sponsor?
The sponsor is great. I do best in the morning, but it seems to last all day, and it carries into the next day for me.
We're doing the show to help people. And we would not be telling you about Magic Mind, I promise you, unless it was good for you. And my son, the doctor, Dr. Drew Brown IV, the spine surgeon, orders it and takes it. And if he takes it, I'll take it.
Sounds good.
Okay. Last thing about health, and this is really important. Walking. A lot of people want to get into exercise, and they take nice walks every evening, leisurely strolls for an hour, and they will say that they're exercising and doing good for themselves. And that's not the truth. And it reminds me of this heavy-set woman at a buffet walking around the salad bar with her plate full of cheese, full of meat, full of blue cheese dressing, full of ranch dressing, a couple of pieces of lettuce and a tomato, honestly believing she's doing much better than eating somewhere else. She's eating salad. And the truth is, no, she's just still continuing to put calories and carbohydrates and sugar in her body. And those are the things that will really hurt you, especially if you're overweight. So walking leisurely does not help you. It takes, you have to have some sort of intensity. And that's very important that people know this. 15 minutes a day of a brisk walk is way better than an hour a day of a leisurely walk. Mm-hmm. Dr. Paul, you're the workout king. Talk to me a little bit about exercising for cardiovascular health, and also the intensity level you got to ramp up a little bit to actually get the benefits.
Yeah, I think you just have to be sensible. The short answer, or the short statement is, you got to break a sweat every once in a while. You don't have to kill yourself, but you need to get breathing. You need to get heart pumping. You need to be breathing, not excessively, so you have a heart attack and do something crazy, but not sedentary. Every once in a while, just move it up. I do high intensity interval training. Do something for like 30 seconds. 30 seconds on, maybe 15 seconds off. 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off.
I love what you just said. Break a sweat.
Yeah, break a sweat. Yeah, right. Just a little bit of it. If you start, because your core temperature is heating up, enough to give you that perspiration. That means you're internally warming up. Something is happening inside of you to make that happen. So you're actually doing something positive. If it's so cold, well, it's too cold out to break. So okay, well, that's cool. As long as you're moving, do something. Don't just stay at one pace. Like long distance running is great. I don't do it anymore, but it's not going to help you for things where you need like fast muscle twitch. If you're playing basketball, if you're fighting anybody, if you're doing martial arts, something like that long cardio may not help you too much in performance. you'll be winded. Someone comes at you really hard, you'll be winded in 10 seconds because they're going at a different pace.
Wow, that's great, Dr. Paul. Can you tell me about our wingman real quick?
Our wingman. Okay, our wingman is one of these unsung heroes you never hear about. Have you ever heard of the Civil Air Patrol?
Yes.
Okay, the CAP, the Civil Air Patrol. I'd never heard of it growing up, but this wingman is Major Carl Matthews. Major Carl Matthews leads a wing of the Civil Air Patrol in the state of Georgia. And he has been doing this for quite a number of years. And I'm really impressed by them because they do so many things. They're an auxiliary of the United States Air Force, actually. It's not the military, but they model themselves after it. And their primary mission is basically search and rescue on land. And they do that. In the average year, they may have rescued like 1,000 people on the ground and in the air. They have an aviation, sort of an aviation mentality. And they have private volunteers who staff this organization. And the big thing that they do that I really like is they are big in the STEM, but they develop young people. Most of them are adults, but they mentor about 25,000 people across the United States. Young people between the ages of like 12 to 18. That doesn't sound like very much. 25,000, that averages like 500 people a state, which is not much. So it's a very small organization. And they would remind you of the Scouts, maybe the Boy Scouts, the Eagle Scouts. They do a lot of things, and young people get involved and get a lot of training, and they assist in some of these rescues. Some of these are teenagers doing these things. I didn't even know they were distributing COVID-19 vaccines.
Wow, Major Matthews must be some kind of guy.
He is. He's a good guy, and the thing about it, he's been doing this a long time because when I met him, he was a cadet in high school, along with my old roommate, and that was 51 years ago. So he's been involved in this for about close to 60 years, and nobody knows. It's unpaid. They dress up in uniforms, and I had the opportunity to speak at their annual Christmas banquet just a week ago, and I was honored to be there. Never did it before. Actually, I was a little bit nervous because I didn't know who would be there, and there was a good smattering of people of different ages. Most were adults. A number were cadets. Some were other cadets who had gone on to college. They graduated from the program, and they were studying different aspects of STEM, science, engineering. Some wanted to be in aerospace. Just a good group of kids, good group of people. Again, there's no media coverage of this kind of thing. This is the only media they're getting.
Well, you know what? And that's what this show is all about, showing the world that there are good people out there. And we will win this because good will overcome evil. And Dr. Paul, as you know, I pray for peace every day.
I pray for peace and good health to all.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time. And that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com. WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth and goodwill towards all men and women.